Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Gabby. If you are not already familiar with me, and I love to talk all things personal finance, organization, and lifestyle. Today's video is going to be all about financial privilege. I want to talk about this topic because I have a lot of financial privilege, and I think it's an important discussion that a lot of people don't really think about in the context of personal finance. I think the personal finance space can be a place for a lot of hope and how anybody out there can clean up their finances, find a way to save some money, find a way to invest, find a way to build wealth. And I think that's an amazing part of personal finance, is that it is a lot of your choices on a day-to-day basis that can lead to your success or your failure in this field. However, I don't think we talk enough about financial privilege and the way that it can impact personal finance. And I know that this can be a sensitive topic, so I am going to be as sensitive as I possibly can be while discussing this. And I'm also going to be very honest and raw, and it's making me a little uncomfortable if I'm being completely honest, but I think that is the important conversation to have, is the things that make you a little uncomfortable. It is not easy to sit here and tell you guys all of the privileges I have as somebody who makes personal finance content. It gives me the feeling that the tips and tricks that I share with you guys will have less value, because you'll see me as somebody who has these privileges that were given to me, but without acknowledging those privileges, I am sort of being fake. I've talked about my financial privilege a ton already, so I'm not saying that I've never been forthright with it, but you know, if you just stumble upon my monthly resets, I think it can be easy to compare yourself to where I currently stand at my age. I think that's very common in the personal finance space. We're all looking for net worth at this age, and you're comparing yourself to that exact person, and there's not enough space in those videos to dive deep into all of the privileges that I have, but they are exceptionally important to remember. If you are going to compare yourself to me, it is an unfair playing field out there, and there's nothing we can do about it. It is the way the world works, unfortunately. I wish we could all start at the exact same place with the exact same privileges, but that's just not how it works. I think the best thing we can do is be forthcoming with our privileges, and I have a very different set of circumstances than you, and that may have led to me being able to be at a better spot financially than a lot of other people. Please, in the comments, be kind. I am obviously being very raw and honest here, so just be kind. I think this is such an important topic, because when we talk about finances and we don't mention the privilege, it can make a lot of people feel like they're failing or that they're behind, when really we just had different starting points. Imagine trying to compare somebody who's doing a 500-meter dash and a 1,000-meter dash and saying like, oh, one of them won. And it's like, well, no shit. You can't compare the two. And I think that's what the point I'm trying to make with this video. So in this video, I will cover exactly what financial privilege is, what experts say about it, and how it can impact your finances. I will also give a bit of an example with a little story time. And then at the end, I'm gonna talk about my own financial privilege and how that has impacted my finances in my journey. So I think with that, we will just get started. If you are currently not subscribed, please consider subscribing. I would really, really appreciate it. And give this video a like if you like it. So what is financial privilege? Financial privilege is basically the advantages that you have as a person in this world who has to make and earn money due to the circumstances that were given to you. So this can come from all aspects of life. This can include the family you were born into, the wealth of your family, the level of education in your family, the ability to go to school, even where you live perhaps. It could also come in the form of the way that you think, the way that you approach things, your risk tolerance, and it really covers just about every aspect of life of what shapes us into the people that we are. And this is a very complex topic. Basically, financial privilege covers any set of circumstances that alter your ability to make and build wealth. So perhaps this could be you never having to pay for rent because you had the ability to live at home for as long as you needed to save up for a house. Or this could be seeing your parents modeling investing and saving in the home. So it's something you were familiar with, it's something you knew about. Our relationship with money is going to look very different based on the ways that we were raised. And if you are like me and you have a lot of financial privilege, this doesn't negate your efforts at making sure that you are financially responsible. It's just discussing the clear fact that it made it easier for you and it made it easier for me. And therefore, it makes bad decisions less risky. A lot of us who have financial privilege can take on more risk. We have safety nets behind us. We don't need to think about getting by and surviving. There are different levels of financial privilege. Of course, if you are born into a family that is obscenely wealthy, you have some of the upper levels of financial privilege. But financial privilege could also just be growing up in a safe neighborhood, having a healthy family at home, just the bare minimum when so many others do not have even that. Okay, to really nail this idea home, I want to give a little bit of an example. Meet Sarah and Maya. Sarah grew up in a financially stable home. She had all of her needs met. She had lots of help from her parents. When she decided to go to university, her schooling was fully paid for, so she graduated university or college debt-free. She also grew up learning from her parents about investing, how to save money. Her parents modeled healthy credit and loan behavior around her, and she might have even grown up knowing about budgeting and how to be conscious with spending. Sarah has a safety net. She has a family who are happy to take her in if anything were to happen to her in the future, and they also would likely help with money and finances if she ever had a situation where she was in a pickle. Okay, now let's meet Maya. Maya grew up with money always being tight at home. Money was a difficult conversation. There was a lot of fighting around money. There was a lot of hard conversations around money. Maya had to get a job in high school, and she had to continue working all the way through university. She also had to take out student loans for her schooling. Maya also now has the responsibility on her shoulders of sending home money to her family because they're not able to make ends meet. Maya has had no financial education at all, and she also has no backup plan. It is not a viable option to move in with her parents, to add any sort of burdens to them. She really needs to make sure she is taking care of herself. So now let's say that both Maya and Sarah got hired at the same company with the exact same job and the exact same income. So let's discuss about how their financial backgrounds may impact how they handle their money that they're making at this new role. So Sarah, she gets hired on and she immediately takes advantage of the employer match with her company because she knows that this is basically free money and part of her payment in the role. Sarah knows not to take on any high interest risky loans. She has absolutely no student debt at this point. Moving forward, she knows to avoid loans. So when she wants to get a vehicle, she ends up buying a used car with her savings. She also, outside of her employer match, starts investing regularly and sets up automatic deposits. Sarah, from the time that she gets hired, has already started her investing journey. Sarah also is able to take career risks by changing to different companies in the future because they will offer her more pay. And she knows if for some reason she was to lose her job, she would have financial backing from her parents. Now let's cover Maya's financial path after getting hired at this job. Maya forgoes the employer match because she cannot imagine taking any more money off of her pay and actually misses out on a great opportunity to invest and get additional income from her employer. Maya is also currently using credit cards, especially for things like emergencies, as she does not have an emergency fund, and she is now paying high interest rates on her credit card consumer debt. Maya also puts all of her money that she is able to save into a savings account instead of investing any of it because it's simply too risky to have funds tied up in the market. Maya is also hesitant to change jobs because she can't risk the instability of job changes when she's currently sending money home every single month. So the result of these two people, same income, same opportunity at the exact same moment, but because of their histories and their backgrounds, these two women are going to have very different financial futures. Maya is probably going to struggle through the most of her 20s, and until she is able to learn more about investing, she's likely going to avoid it. And she's going to miss those very opportune years when you're in your 20s and 30s to build your wealth for the future because of compound interest. Sarah has basically done all of the right things that she should and is already building wealth in the background while she is working this initial job. She's able to climb the corporate ladder and move around to new jobs when the pay is better, and overall she's likely going to make more money in the future. So as you can see, these women have the exact same income but completely different paths in the future, and this is not because one is smarter or works any harder, but simply because one person started with financial stability and the knowledge about finances to do the right thing. So now let's talk about my financial privilege. I consider myself an incredibly privileged person, all in all. Like I really do think I have a lot of privilege especially financial privilege. So I grew up in a very happy and healthy home. My parents were married until I was in the 11th grade. So for most of my childhood, my home life was very stable, very normal. I was very loved and cared for. All of my needs were met. We never had any discussions about ever being worried about finances. I can't remember a single time where there was any discussion negatively around money. If anything, there just was no discussion until I got a little bit older. When I was in the 6th grade, my parents switched me over from the Catholic school system into a private school. So that is another huge privilege I had. I went to private school from grades 6 up until 12, and this school was specifically designed to help get kids into post-secondary education. So I automatically had better education. There were fewer kids in every single class. I had one teacher to like 10 to 13 students versus the typical like one teacher to 30 students. So you could argue it was actually easier for me to get into post-secondary and to secure a successful future for myself. When I went to university, my schooling was entirely paid for. I did not have to worry about taking out a single loan. I also did not have to worry about working while in school because my parents also covered my day-to-day expenses while I was in school. Granted that every single semester I had off from school, I was working. So this allowed me to really focus in on my studies and to make sure that I graduated with better grades and overall a better opportunity to get a job after I graduated. I grew up with a dad who was very interested in investing and who talked about it often. I remember him giving me Rich Dad, Poor Dad to read when I was like 14. My dad was very knowledgeable about saving and investing and all of that, and he always shared very formative, helpful conversations around money. I always knew that the best thing to do with your money was to put it in the market and to let it grow, and that is obviously not something that everyone has at home. When I was 12, my grandma passed away incredibly young. She was 58 years old and she had an aneurysm out of nowhere. It was incredibly traumatic. And sorry, I laugh when I'm uncomfortable. Yeah, it was awful, and it was my first real loss of anyone, and it was the worst person I could have lost. I was incredibly close with my grandma, and so yeah, and because she was so young and she had recently retired, she had a very large nest egg that she was hoping to use for the rest of her, 30, 40 years on earth that she should have had. And so when she passed, it was left to her partner. And when he passed, he decided that he would split it up between some of his family members and my family as well. That money, when I received it, my dad invested it in the market for me. So I have had a large lump sum of money invested in the markets. And as you can imagine, that has compounded and grown quite a considerable amount. I also have never had to worry about a car payment. I have been gifted both of the vehicles I have owned in my life. My first car I was gifted at 16, and then later in my 20s, I was gifted another vehicle when my dad decided to upgrade his car, and he gave his old car to me. I didn't even have to pay for it. I regularly receive gifts from my parents still, very helpful gifts. That air fryer right there is from my mom. So there are so many things I'm regularly gifted. I think I get more gifts than the average 30-year-old. It's crazy. I've also been fortunate enough to have trips fully paid for me all the way through. A couple years ago, we went to Mexico, and that was fully paid for by my dad because him and his wife were getting married, and instead of having a wedding, they just wanted to pay for everyone to go to Mexico together. My parents have been so gracious, and they have done everything in their power to make sure that I was given opportunities that my dad did not have and my mom did not have. My mom is a refugee from Chile, so she had a very difficult childhood, and my dad grew up on a farm. He was one of 2 people from his high school graduating class that ended up going to university, and he's very self-made. He has worked incredibly hard over his life, and they just wanted to give me the chance that they did not have when they were growing up. Oh, I'm getting emotional. As you can tell from that very long list of financial privilege, I had an incredible head start on life that a lot of people do not have. I'm so much more privileged than the average person, and I fully recognize that. There is nothing that ticks me off more than when people cannot recognize the privilege they have and who shame other people for not being where they're at. I think that is atrocious. It reminds me of the Nepo babies in Hollywood who just continuously love to pop up and like fight for how they are just as hardworking as everyone else, or they're discriminated against for having rich parents. Like, I just think it's so ridiculous, and it's actually what kind of inspired this video. Is I just wanted to come from the side of someone who's privileged and just to say like, hey, don't beat up on yourself. I am in this place right now, yes, by hard work, determination, all of those things. But at the same time, I was already 100 yards ahead of you before you even got started. It's just not a fair comparison. And as I said, this doesn't erase my hard work and the effort I've put into building my own wealth. It absolutely doesn't. But at the same time, to not recognize how much easier of a path I've had is lunacy. Why does this matter? Why does financial privilege matter? Why do we need to speak about this a lot more? I give personal finance advice on this channel, and I love doing it, but it's very important to remember that personal finance is not a one-size-fits-all for everyone. When you are comparing your financial progress online to somebody, you do not know the set of circumstances that they were given that you were not. That's why it's so important that we avoid the consistent comparison that is so common online. And some people, like myself, have family to fall back on. There's so many safety mechanisms in place. If I tomorrow was to lose every single dollar to my name, I could immediately move in with some of my family and they would not charge me rent. They would not charge me for groceries. They would not charge me for helping me get back on my feet. Their love and their graciousness has no bounds when it comes to me. And because of that, I can take more risk in personal finance. If I wanted to have a sabbatical and take 6 months off of my job to pursue YouTube, I could do that because I've saved for it. But I could also do that knowing that I'm not going to put myself in a dangerous situation. I have so many options available to me that so many people do not have. And not to mention just the support of family and the people around you. Being able to rely on others is such a privilege that so many people do not have, especially immigrants. Not to get political right now, but there is such an unfairness when people are already so vulnerable. They're alone, they have no support, they are trying their hardest to make something happen for themselves, and then they're getting dragged out of their apartments and zip tied to their ankles. We'll stop with the political talk, but that's my stance on that. With personal finance, the amount of risk you are able to take is actually something that can directly correlate to the returns that you are able to keep. You are able to build wealth faster if you are able to take on more risk. Even being okay with putting your money in the stock market is a privilege, because so many people, there's no chance that they're gonna put their money into something that's moving and changing in value every single day. I think that's everything, you guys. I really wanted to share this topic just for the sake of transparency, but I also really just wanted to have this discussion in the personal finance space because I think it doesn't get brought up enough. And especially if you are jumping onto my videos and you're seeing how much I make every month and how much money I'm able to invest and my net worth and all of that, I never want those videos to be used as comparison or to make anyone else feel bad about themselves. I want to share how I have learned to grow my wealth because it was easy for me to learn this. It was something that was interesting to me. It was given to me on a silver platter, you know? And I felt called to share it with people because so many people don't know about it, especially women. I feel like women can be left out of the investing and wealth building world a lot, especially online. And I think the best thing to do with situations like this is to talk about it openly and create an open space and a safe space for people to talk about this sort of thing. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope it was helpful in some way. Please let me know your thoughts on financial privilege. If it has impacted your life in a pro, in a con, I would love to hear it. That way we can learn more about each other and the circumstances we have and how that's impacted us in the comments down below. Be kind and respectful, of course, but love you guys so much. I will see you guys in the next one.